Hello, YouTubers. This is Joe Kersey here on. It's getting toward 17:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time on Saturday, October 8th. Now, this is an introduction to the full Ripon Wakeman experience as promulgated and offered and tossed up in the air by Mr. Paul Scofield. Paul Scofield, who was one of the three Ripon Wakemen on duty the night we happened to be there. The first night we were there, it rained fairly heavily. And so you may have seen a brief thing of another fellow, but this is a different fellow, and he's got the much bigger horn. In fact, there are actually there are four horns, but there are three Wakemen. Watch this as a piece of sheer British history and tradition and wonderfulness. And Paul Scofield, Mr. Paul Scofield, the Wakeman of Ripon, speaks for himself in this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the watch is set. Hi, good evening everybody. My name's Paul Scofield, and as you probably gathered, I'm your horn blower for this evening. This little ceremony you've just witnessed is probably the oldest surviving tradition in the world. We've been doing it every night, and we haven't missed a night since the year 886. That's 1,130 years. It hasn't been me all the time before anybody else. The story goes But it all began as a result of a granting of a charter to Ripon by King Alfred the Great. Apparently, King Alfred was wandering round the Viking-controlled kingdom of Northumbria when he chanced upon Ripon, or in Ripon as it was known in those days. And he took quite a fancy to the place. Said, "You've got a wonderful spot here on the confluence of 3 rivers, and I'd dearly love to grant you a charter. But unfortunately, I left Winchester in a bit of a rush, and I clean forgot to pack any writing materials. I haven't got a quill pen or a piece of parchment to my name, so I'm afraid I can't knock you up a charter. But it just so happens that in the back of my carriage I've got this here horn. So, as a token of a granting of a charter to Ripon, I'm going to present you with this here horn, and I suggest you find somebody to blow it, because these are well dodgy times with all these Vikings kicking about." Right. If you believe that, you'll believe anything. King Alfred the Great, wonderful monarch though he was, probably didn't get any further north than Blythe services on the A1. And if you read the Anglo-Saxon Charter, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle pertaining to that year, you'll find that Alfred was rather preoccupied in the southeast of England. Having laid siege to Rochester, the Danes had taken it into their heads to try and settle in Benfleet. Why, I don't know, but there you go. So Alfred and his son Edward were busy booting them out of there. But, as they say, why let the truth get in the way of a good story? It says 886 somewhere on the obelisk, and I used to have a tie with the crest of Ripon and 886 written underneath it. So there must be an element of truth somewhere. Certainly, sometime in the Dark Ages, Ripon did indeed appoint a Wakeman. Now this Wakeman was chosen by and from the 12 most important people in the city, a body of men known as the 12 Keepers. And once they'd got a Wakeman sorted out, the other 11 were duly appointed as the Wakeman's constables. Now, one of the chief duties of this dirty dozen was the upkeep of law and order, because of course there wasn't a police force in those days. So, the Wakeman used to signify that his watch had started by sounding a horn on the 4 corners of what was then the Market Cross. Having done this, he and his constables were to remain vigilant, making sure nothing untoward happened until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, depending on whether it was summer or winter. Now, if any householder could prove that they'd suffered any sort of loss during the period of the watch, well, it fell on the poor old Wakeman to reimburse any loss that anybody may have incurred. Now, obviously, this could have left him quite seriously out of pocket. So, he used to run a sort of an insurance policy. He used to levy a tax on people's doors. Now, if your door opened directly onto the market square, you had to pay 4pence a year, a not inconsiderable sum. However, if your door happened to be up some alleyway or round the back, well, it was half price, you only had to stump up 2pence. So if you look round Ripon Market Square, you'll see there's loads of little alleyways and ginnels running off it. We're not daft. Anyhow, this continued more or less in the same vein right up to the year 1604. Now you'll appreciate that between 886 and 1604, nothing much happened really. A couple of major civil wars, Norman Conquest, Black Death, Peasants' Revolt, you know, things like that, but now to write home about. And during this period, Ripon became quite a prosperous place. This was greatly helped by the coming to England in the 12th century of these Cistercian monks from Clairvaux in France. Now these Cistercians were granted huge tracts of land by a nobility that thought it'd be a quick way to get to heaven. and they found it 4 major abbeys, fairly close to Ripon. We've got Fountains Abbey about a mile up the road, Jervo Abbey near Midland, and then if we go a bit further east we've got Byland Abbey, and the oldest of those 4, Ripon. Now, apart from doing a lot of worshipping and praying and things like that, these monks were big sheep farmers. So with the wool that these monasteries produced, Ripon thrived. And later it also became quite an important place in the cloth trade. In fact, after York and Halifax, Ripon was the most important place in Yorkshire for cloth. Again, this was greatly helped by King Edward III banning the import of foreign cloth in the middle of the 14th century. So everything seemed to be going swimmingly. Then we get to the 16th century. That's when the wheels started to come off a bit. We've got King Henry VIII on the throne, and after 20 odd years of marriage, he wakes up one morning and decides he's fed up with his wife. He wants shot. Well, he hadn't quite got round to the head chopping off stage. He just wanted a divorce. But the snag was that Catherine of Aragon just happened to be the aunt of the Holy Roman Emperor, a chap called Charles V. Now Charles gets to hear what's happening in England, so he goes running to the Pope. Now here we have rather a strange anomaly, for despite being a Spanish Habsburg, Charles V had a bit of a Yorkshire accent. And so, curiously enough, did Pope Clement VII. And the conversation went something like this. "Hey, Your Holiness, has the word what's going on in England with that fella Henry? He's trying to sack me anti-cap. Canst thou do something about it?" "EX," says Pope Clement, "that's a rum un. Don't do out daft, Charles." Of course, there weren't emails in those days. "Dear Tudor, you can't have a divorce, so there, love Pope Clement." Now, Henry's understandably quite miffed by this. I mean, let's face it, only a few years previously, he'd been appointed Defender of the Faith. So he replies back by return, "OK, Buster, if that's how you feel, I'll start my own religion then. How?" So in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, that's the English Reformation. Well, the upshot of all this malarkey was that in 1535, Henry passed the Dissolution Act, effectively shutting all these monasteries down and rendering the lands and property forfeit to the Crown. 3 years later, his demolition squads get this far north, started whipping all the lead off the abbey roofs, running off with the church plate, etc., etc. This hit Ripon quite hard. Understandably, it knocked the wool trade on the head sideways. Strange simile. But rather more importantly, it took away the restraining hand of the church from these Wakemen. And for the next 70 years or so, matters got a bit out of hand. The market square began to look a bit like a punishment theme park. They were tying people to the backs of carts and whipping them. There was one occasion in 1570 when 300 people were hanged on Gallows Hill in the space of a month. That was after the rising of the North against Elizabeth I, so I suppose they had a bit of an excuse. And putting people in the stocks was also quite a popular pastime. In fact, there's a little article in the Town Book of 1598 that states, "If anybody doth bycall or misuse the Wakeman, or any of his brethren, with slanderous, opprobrious, or scurrilous words, they shall be placed in the stocks in the space of a day and a night, and any further offences shall be further punished." I don't think they've repealed that one, you know. Anyhow, I digress. To cut a long story short, 1603, Elizabeth I dies. She's succeeded by James VI of Scotland, who, not unsurprisingly, becomes James I of England as well. And the following year, King Jim pays Ripon the first of quite a few visits. And this time, the monarch has got a proper charter with him. In fact, we've still got the 1604 charter in the town hall. Anyhow, King James gathers together the great and the good of the city. In other words, these 12 blokes that's been running it since the year dot. And says, right, you lot, got this nice shiny new charter for you, but you're not having it till A, the ink's dry, and B, you get yourselves sorted out. I'm sick of you, Wakemen. Over the last few years, you've become far too big for your own boots, and I want no more of it. What I want you to do is hold elections, get yourself a proper city council, and have this council headed up by a mayor. You don't argue with James the First, as a fella called Guy Fawkes found out to his cost the following. So, elections were duly held, Ripon got its first city council and its first mayor. Now, whether by accident or by design, the last Wakeman of Ripon became its first mayor, a chap called Hugh Ripley, who used to live in that house in the southwest corner of the market square, the one with the 4 bay windows and that little attic window. It's now the Wakeman's Cafe. Now, as I say, Hugh had been a Wakeman, so he knew what the score was with this horn blowing going on. And he says, look, we've got this wonderful tradition here in Ripon. We've been doing it hundreds of years, and I want to keep it going. But obviously, now I've been elected mayor, it can't be me that's doing it. I mean, for one thing, I'm far too busy with my civic duties, and another thing is that the straps on the horn will get tangled up with my chain. So what I'm going to do is appoint a horn blower to do the job for me. But I'm going to add this little caveat, because I know what a dodgy bunch of characters you horn blowers that can be. I've been there, I've done it, I've worn the tricorn hat. Yet far rather spent time in the tavern, quaffing ale, carousing and carrying on, than going out in market squares blowing horns. It does have a point there, but we won't go into that too deeply. I mean, if you see a horn blower coming out of the unicorn, don't bat an eyelid. However, if you see a unicorn coming out of the horn blower, that's a totally different matter altogether. So, Mr. Hornblower, says Hugh Ripley to his newly appointed lackey, what you must do, once you've set the watch on the market square, is find the abode of the mayor for the evening. In other words, where the mayor's hanging out. Once you've established that, you must sound your horn a further 3 times, raise your hat and bow your head and say the words, Mr. Mayor, the watch is set. So every night, since that day in 1604, once the hornblower has set the watch, he's got to go and play hide and seek with the mayor. I haven't got a clue where Mr. Mayor is tonight. A carrier pigeon has not descended on my windowsill, nor has any messengers with cleft sticks been risping at me door. And haven't even emailed me or texted me. So I'm going to use my get out clause. I'm going to sound my horn 3 times on the town hall steps. I can do this because if you notice above the town hall front door there is a lamp. And on the lampshade is written, among other things, the Right Worshipful Mayor of Ripon. See, our mayor also has a lamp outside his front door. Well, only the case of our current mayor, it's about 100 yards away. I think the neighbours objected. They won't go. So basically, that's what horn blowing's all about. The horn blower works for the mayor. Now, since the end of February last year, the post of horn blower is a job share. We've got 3 of us doing it. Now I'm the smallest of the 3, and I do the most nights, so I get the biggest horn to blow. This is an African ox horn, and it was bought for the city in 1865 by the mayor of the day. On Sundays and Mondays, you'll see my colleague Wayne blowing a different horn. It's a lot smaller and slimmer than this one. And because Wayne's the youngest of the 3 of us, he gets the newest horn. And by a strange coincidence, both Wayne and his horn go back to 1986. In the case of the horn, it was bought for the city by a local antiques firm to commemorate 1100 years of horn blowing in Ripon. Now my other colleague, Jim, who does Tuesdays and Wednesdays, blows a rather unique horn. Similar in size and shape to the 1986 horn, this one is the only horn that Ripon has ever had to cough up for out of municipal funds. In 1690, so it's quite an old horn, it cost the City Council the princely sum of 6 shillings and 8 pence, a third of a quid, 33 and 30 pence in today's money. And you can't get a package of polos for that now, but in 1690 it seemed to the council to be a heck of a lot to be tipping up for a horn. In fact, there's something in the council minutes that reads, "Ye thieves, rogues, vagabonds, varlets and rob dogs hath charged us 6 shillings and 8 pence for a horn, and we're not happy." In fact, it's still got the price tag on it. No, honestly, there's a copper plaque on the 1690 horn that says, "This horn cost the corporation 6 shillings and 8 pence." They didn't have room to inscribe anything else, thankfully. So I think I've just about waffled on long enough. Has anybody got any questions?
Thank you very much.
If you can think of any, I'll be one-eyed rat in about 10 minutes. Right, thank you very much, everybody. It's always nice to have somebody to talk to. Thank you. Right.
Thank you.
Off to the one-eyed rat.